I've found that there are people that are really good at editing. There's people that really understand social media, like what's trending or what is kind of culturally relevant. You find there are people that can get great video content, um, but trying to find somebody that can do all of those things well is
It's
difficult.
actually quite a multidisciplinary
It,
function.
it's more than just
Yeah.
shooting something on an iPhone and posting it.
We're here at the Aesthetic Meet 2025, and I'm sitting down with Dr. Brent Robinson of Salt Lake City. Dr. Robinson, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here. Good to see you.
Yes, it's good to have you back. You were in this very podcast booth with us last year,
Yeah.
and I'm sort of building a tradition, which I think is fun, sitting down with some of our clients and kind of just getting like an annual update.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to do that with you. And what I find so fun about it is I get to kind of hear from different perspectives what's happening in the industry, what's happening in this phase or this year of practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear about that from you. Let's start off by just kind of talking about what you're up to these days. What's changed for you since last year?
Yeah. So actually, a lot has changed. I'm still in the same place, so I'm still in Salt Lake City, but I have transitioned practices. So I was in a smaller practice, one other provider, and I've since kind of transitioned to larger practice. There's 4 of us now that are in practice, and it's been a great transition. It's been awesome. A lot of learning along the way, but overall, it's been great.
That's awesome. Yeah, you mentioned to me when I knew that you did change practices. Was there anything that drove that change? Was it more about the practice that you were going to be able to be a part of and what was offered there, or kind of curious what was the motivation behind that?
Yeah, it was, I've always wanted to be somebody that was in a larger practice. It's great to kind of bounce ideas, off each other. We're all kind of on the younger spectrum, so we're all within about 5 years of each other, and all kind of have a very similar kind of growth mindset, kind of all have similar kind of goals, I think. So it's been great from that perspective, just to be with kind of like-minded individuals that kind of share a common goal.
Yeah, there's nothing like having alignment among partners on the overall vision.
Yep.
I definitely understand that, so I can feel you on that. This podcast, we try to focus on the marketing side. That's obviously the thing that
Mm-hmm.
we think about day in and day out. So when I sit down here with docs, I like to hear from their perspective about marketing, what's working, what's not. You mentioned something to me earlier when I bumped into you at the coffee shop about how the practice you joined, the main surgeon really has totally gotten the social media thing locked down and is booked out, and then he kind of grew from there.
Yep.
Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the partner that kind of initially started everything was Dr. Chittister, and he has become very well known in terms of surgical outcomes, but having this really strong social media presence. Really, kind of one of what I look at as one of the first kind of really strong influencers kind of within social media, and so that has leveraged a large kind of patient following, and taught me a lot about kind of marketing and how to approach marketing from an informational perspective in terms of talking about different questions that addressing different questions that patients might have, post-op recovery questions, procedural questions, why do we do, what's the difference between an abdominoplasty versus a mini tummy tuck, and kind of trying to put that content out there so that people are informed. So I think that's kind of the power of social media, is being able to kind of provide that platform. And it's interesting, everybody kind of has their own flavor of what they do. He's got these great dancing videos and everything, and everybody has a little bit of a different style.
Yeah.
So it's been great to be able to kind of see how that works and how you can kind of use that as a marketing.
For sure. I mean, I think everyone has to find their own style and tone and content format and what sort of stuff they want to do.
Yep.
But certainly, I've been in this business now about 13 years, marketing for plastic surgery, and I have seen one constant, or there are several things, but one that I certainly observed is there are definitely people who have been pioneers in certain marketing channels who've who've won and who've ended up coming out ahead. And almost in every case, there's been some skepticism, maybe even criticism of, you know, of early days. We have had clients that were the first to put out websites, and that was there was ethical concern over posting before and after photos online, and you run into these things where someone pushes the boundaries a little bit and is a pioneer and ends up doing really well. So it sounds like in your case, your partner there was an early adopter in social media, and that's obviously played out really well for the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's there. I think I've seen an interesting shift where there's a lot of patients there's a number of patients that come in and they want to kind of share their story. So a lot of what we do are termed, I don't know if I love this term, but the mommy makeover procedures, which basically consists of, some abdominal procedure, abdominoplasty, extended abdominoplasty, whatever. And then some breast procedure, so breast lift with augmentation. And there's a lot of patients now that are wanting to kind of provide that content about their, experience, about how they, seek out a board-certified plastic surgeon, the vetting process, the consultation process, whether or not that's a good fit in terms of, kind of who they're looking for. And I think that the content that patients generate, that I think it's very organic and it gives a very real life perspective, because I can talk about different procedures and from a technical standpoint, I can explain, kind of what we're doing and what our goal is. But when patients see somebody that kind of looks like them, that is kind of from, kind of a similar background, and that person goes through and said, I had this tummy tuck and this is what my recovery was like and this is what I expect, and they even go into in depth about their post-operative protocol. And I had a patient recently that was sharing things that I never would have thought about, that she bought a tray that helped her in bed hold her things, and different compression socks. And so it's cool to see patients kind of coming alongside you and providing that informational content at kind of a different level and a different perspective.
I think that stuff is highly engaging, highly relatable, obviously, if you're a patient considering surgery and really wanting to hear it from a patient. So are you focusing on trying to partner with your patients to make content more of that variety?
Yeah, they usually want to do it on their own. I never offer free surgery at all for influencers and stuff. Like I just don't do that. But it's, and they just want to share kind of their experience. It's inevitably a lot of patients that have been thinking about, doing something for themselves for a number of years. And then they, in some cases get the courage up to kind of come in for a consultation. And there's a lot of kind of anxiety about that whole process, and kind of breaking down that barrier to be evaluated for, a surgical procedure. And it's a vulnerable position that we, understand. And so for them to then kind of go through it and, it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be, or, this was hard, but, this wasn't, so it's great to kind of validate a lot of those concerns that people might have up front.
Yeah. So when they make that kind of content, you end up in some of it as their surgeon?
Yeah, it's really, I never ask people to make videos for me or content or anything, but they just kind of do it on their own, own volition.
I mean, so that's the best endorsement you can get, right?
And I think I think there are places that try to incentivize patients to do that, and I just think it's not as genuine, and again, just the kind of organic content that comes out of it when the patient's just kind of sharing their journey.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, you can't ask for better than that if they do it on their own, and then you're hearing about it from a patient. This is a marketing podcast usually, I mean, we go off in different directions, but I like to keep it focused around marketing. So we're talking about content. Have you had patients actually come in from those other types of videos at another?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of, kind of one of my goals with some of the content that, I try to put out is to be really educational. And a lot of patients, I'll talk about, like, one thing our practice does a lot, right, is we do a lot of breast augmentation, and we do something called an internal bra, where we use mesh to kind of support the breast implant. I've done a kind of number of posts on that, and a lot of times we'll have patients that'll come in and they'll say, "Oh, you don't have to even really kind of tell them, go in depth into your spiel about what that is, because I've seen your video. I know, you know what I mean."
Nice.
Or I'll start talking. They'll say, "Yeah, I saw, you already kind of talked about that in your last post or whatever." And so like that's great. So then now it's kind of that reinforcing of kind of something that they already know about, right? It's like studying for a class before you get to class, right? So as you kind of are reinforcing a concept, and I think that is really the power for me of social media, is just kind of educating, informing, trying to give clear, evidence-based recommendations, and then letting patients make their own informed decision. Like another one is, the difference between submuscular and subfascial breast augmentation. That's another really hot topic, and you can talk to a lot of plastic surgeons that are here, and they'll argue one plane versus another, and there are certain circumstances when one plane is better than the other, but just making sure that patients understand what are the limitations of submuscular, what are the limitations of subfascial, and kind of addressing those.
That's awesome. So you haven't danced in any videos yet. You're focusing mostly on the education stuff, or have you done any dancing videos?
I did. I'm a terrible dancer, but I did. I did very very short form dancing. So, but not many. Not many.
And
the social media ladies are always trying to get it out of me, but I'm getting a little more comfortable with it day by day.
But do you feel like it helps patients kind of like endure,
100%.
kind of get to know your personality? Yeah.
Because I think what I've seen is if you're just posting before and after photos on whatever it is, Instagram or your page, it's a little bit distant. And I think part of Dr. Chittister's success has been that patients come in and they kind of understand, his personality and a little bit of his, personal life. And that's, everybody does that a little bit differently, but I think it makes the consultation a little bit more comfortable because people kind of feel like they know you. And that's great. I mean, just kind of, making it a little bit more comfortable instead of this very kind of sterile, like I'm the physician, you're the patient. There's like this hierarchy that we really try to kind of break down in our practice.
Cool.
Try to be very, conversational and just informing, making sure that people kind of make the best, most informed decision.
I love that. I agree. And I think you don't have to spend that much. You don't have to be so concerned. I mean, obviously having a big following is nice. Getting a lot of engagement and views on videos is nice. But even if it's not at that huge volume, there's a lot of value in some of those views you don't realize. You could get a low amount of views, but some percentage of them are patients that later come to you and say, yeah, I watched it. I already know what you were going to say, or I've gotten to connect with you.
Yeah.
So I think we also have to think about it not only from this didn't get a lot of views, this wasn't good.
Right.
There's a
100%.
ton more value
100%.
in there.
Yep. And I think, one thing I've really tried to focus on for, content-wise is trying to think of like, what question do most patients have before they, come into surgery? So like, what's the average question or unknown part of this whole process? And trying to not make content for yourself, but for the patient. Like, how can I inform or kind of clarify things? And I think that's, I think if you focus on that, then that's, it's really, really helpful and provides value to the patient, even though it might not be something that you necessarily would be at the top of your list. Keeping things just kind of basic and understandable. And because, what we do, there's a lot of variability, and there's a lot of nuance, and there's, this is why we're at this conference, and there's, so many different techniques and so many different post-operative protocols. And
forces you to put yourself in the patient's shoes a little bit, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you shoot that content? Is it just iPhone, or do you have a whole elaborate setup, or keep it simple?
Yeah. So we at the newer practice, we have somebody that is basically in-house that helps us with some of the content. I've done some editing myself. It's always better when somebody else does it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a lifesaver. We've gotten to the point of Influx where we do have internal team to do that now, but we didn't for the longest time. And but it's very hard to be consistent on social without those resources, I would say.
It is. And I think, I've talked to certainly Erica about this, that you lose a little bit of the kind of organic feel of content. If you try, I think, to have somebody across the country,
Yeah,
do your
yeah,
social
yeah.
media, and it's like these stock photos, like that it just feels like an ad,
Hmm.
So trying to balance that with somebody that can be there and kind of collect that content for you, I think, is really helpful.
We've always recommended people do it in-house, or if we are actually doing more of a service now where we'll fly out to practices. But if they have a local option, they should really consider that. As long as
Yeah,
that person really understands the trends, understands their industry, by far, that's the work with a local person. But we're kind of developing because it's really hard to do outsourced, as you've mentioned. So
yeah,
we have to come to you and we'll shoot a couple months worth of content. You still need to augment in between because there's other things going on. It's not going to be the full solution, but
yeah.
there are, there's a spectrum of solutions, but agreed, they got to be inside those walls. They got to be helping you produce that content.
Yeah, it's hard because I've found that there are people that are really good at editing. There's people that really understand social media, like what's trending or what is kind of culturally relevant. You find there are people that can get great video content, um, but trying to find somebody that can do all of those things well is difficult.
It's actually quite a multidisciplinary
It,
function.
it's more than just
Yeah,
shooting something on an iPhone and posting it.
100%.
Totally agree.
It's true.
Totally agree.
All right. Well, we've gotten talking longer than I expected because I was loving to hear from you about these things, but there's a couple quick questions, and
Yeah.
then I promise I'll let you get on your way. I've been asking each of the docs who sit with me some consistent questions because I kind of want to hear from their different points of view.
Yeah.
So again, we're a marketing podcast. I'm curious, from your perspective, what are the top, 2 or 3 marketing channels on which you're getting new patients coming in your door, would you say?
For us, and my understanding of kind of what patients give in terms of feedback, because we always ask patients, like, how did you hear about Dr. Robinson? Instagram, like, by far, like not even close.
Cool.
TikTok, but unfortunately TikTok takes pretty much every video down once you kind of put that label of plastic surgeon or plastic surgery. So website would probably be number 2 then.
Awesome. And okay, and then my next question here is, are there any major industry trends you're seeing kind of in 2025 or over these last 12 months, good or bad, that you would comment on?
Yeah, so we were talking about this in terms of like where is social media content going, and I think it's it's hard to say, but I think a more artistic approach to like videography, where it's not just this like these kind of over these before and after photos that are just like that's it. More where it has this kind of emotional component to like the way that photos are taken, lighting, all that. So I think that's maybe the next, but it's hard to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's, I mean, that's kind of the foundation of our company in a sense, if this is what you're saying. I mean, we tried to bring in designers, graphic designers from other industries into aesthetics, 12 years ago when every website was very medical. And we've only seen more and more aesthetics come into aesthetics, if you will, refinement of creative and people creating brands and, of themselves and of their practice versus just a medical practice. And all of that requires a creative agency, or more and more doctors are becoming creatives themselves, right?
Yeah.
So
it's one of the parts of private practice that I really like, because it's like a puzzle. You're just trying to like figure out what works well. And I think the biggest thing is just trying to be genuine and just be who you are. Like, I'm just not the guy that's going to dance as much as some other people. But you just have to stay true to, I think, who you are and kind of what works with your personality.
100% agreed. In all marketing, got to find what you're comfortable with, your voice, and really let that come through organically.
Yeah.
How has AI impacted your practice, if at all, so far? How are you seeing it start to come in?
Yeah, I don't know how to quantify that. I don't know how to quantify that because every once in a while I will query AI for best plastic surgeon in Salt Lake City, just to see out of curiosity like who it generates. And it always generates like different random people, and then it will generate somebody I've never even heard of. And so it's I don't know. That's probably a better question for you in terms of like where is AI going to take us? I know that's the next thing. that people are not going to Google search, plastic surgeon. They're going to do that very thing. You
Yeah.
know, best plastic surgeon, Salt Lake City, abdominoplasty. And then it's like, how do you position yourself there?
It's a fascinating subject. Well, I ask about AI because people talk about it's going to change everything. So I kind of know it hasn't yet like dramatically altered the life of, inside the walls of a practice.
Yep.
Marketing is where it's first touched, for sure.
Yeah.
But even then, we're still very early days. But I like to hear from people if they're like, I actually have seen it show up here where I didn't expect, or we are seeing some device companies working into their hand pieces and that technology,
Mm-hmm.
or they're talking about it, and some are early stage on it. From a marketing perspective, one of the things I care about for sure the most is when does the switch flip from search engine to an AI model,
Yeah.
something like a chat
Because we're kind of
GPT.
getting there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you look at now Google search results,
Yeah.
it's integrated,
Yeah.
but it's like this kind of, dual model where you have a little bit of AI, but also traditional
And then
search.
the traditional Google search. Here's the distinction that, like, I talk with my business partners about this, and we talk about a commercial search versus an informational search.
Mm-hmm.
It is 100% the superior product, any AI results when you're looking for information. I asked it recently something. I basically asked it to do some research on someone that I was going to be interviewing, I think it was. So what was their title, and it just found a bunch of stuff on the internet. They don't have a Wikipedia page about them. So it wasn't as easy as that.
Yeah.
And so instead of searching through multiple search results, it just summarized it all for me. And it said they recently switched positions from this company to this company. And it figured all that out.
Yeah.
So it is 100% the superior product when it comes to informational. When we talk about a commercial search, which is anything where I'm looking for the best option or place to spend my money, a product or a service, and certainly a surgeon, the engine that drives that is random, it seems, at best.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to eventually have to weight in review data that is verified. That's what I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
AI is data. AI is just taking the data that it has. And right now, I mean, it's actually been the game with Google for so long, is you put best in front of the doctor's name, and Google might say they're the best in that city, but it's not.
Yeah.
But that's not credentialed in any way. That's not. I think Google has stayed away from trying to attach any kind of other resource or third-party validation of quality, any kind of a qualitative validation, because then they're appending their name to that.
Yep.
They're endorsing.
Yep.
It'd be very interesting to me to see how AI decides to take something qualitative like the best. I think the answers will become highly personalized too, right? What's best for me? But so far that part is extremely primitive compared to the informational search. So
Totally
I
agree.
think that,
Yeah.
but the first thing is the migration, people using it more and more. More and more of my friends just pick up the ChatGPT app or tap on that app versus going to Google. And the more that happens, and the more they capture the audience there, then they're going to have more opportunities to say, okay, yeah, you should definitely be you're in Salt Lake, you should definitely be going to see Dr. Robinson.
Yep.
So we'll see when that switch flips. But since you turned it back on me, that's my thoughts about it. My last question is, where do you feel kind of the industry is heading? Like, if you look ahead, what do you see for the industry? That's a very open-ended question, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think we're just getting, in terms of, aesthetic plastic surgery, I think technology is coming to the point to where we are kind of bridging the gap between, in kind of body-based aesthetic plastic surgery, kind of two general options, right? So you got, kind of liposuction, removal of fat, you have skin excisional procedures plus removal of fat. So that'd be like an abdominoplasty with liposuction. And then you have these patients that are kind of like in between, that they don't want the incision of a tummy tuck, but they might have too much excess loose skin and areas of localized lipodystrophy to just do liposuction. So I think, you were seeing already with Renuvion, here we're seeing quantum, so radiofrequency, helium plasma, skin tightening. So we're going to see, I think, more expansion of less invasive options for patients. I think that what we're going to see a lot more of is endoscopic procedures. So, transaxillary breast augmentation, incision that's in the axilla. We're going to go in, we're going to place a breast implant under endoscopic visualization, and there'll be no external incisions on the breast. And so I think, that was done a while ago, and I think it's coming back in, but there's more technology that we can kind of implement. So I think, and we're seeing that with facelifts too. Endoscopic facelifts are going up. And so, I think that's, the more minimally invasive approach. But, again, the gold standard kind of always is, skin excision plus removal of fat with some mechanism. But I think that as the technology improves, we're going to kind of maybe bridge that gap and kind of narrow it.
Kind of more, I'm using a big word, liminal aesthetics, like in between.
Yeah.
Like in between aesthetics, kind of interesting concept.
Yeah.
I do think not my area of expertise particularly, but obviously we spend a lot of time thinking about this, talking to people, and I've seen someone else answered that consumers becoming more sophisticated and essentially seeing what really needs to be surgery.
Yeah.
Instead of having like a wrong expectation from something surgical, non-surgical.
Totally agree. Yeah.
But then those two things actually, what you said and what this other doc said, definitely I think go together quite nicely. So
Yeah.
that sounds spot on. Well, Dr. Robinson, thank you so much. I promise you it'd be short. And look, we actually kept you for almost a half hour. So I apologize.
It's all good.
I just love kind of chit-chatting about all this. So thank you for the time.
It's always good to see you.
Yes, you too. Appreciate you sitting down with me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.